One fateful night, the moon was shining over the silent neighborhood of Eluala community. A beautiful young teenage girl of 15 years of age began to experience a lonely and painful life due to the evil act of the person she so much trusted. She was a very pretty and lively young girl who had a bright future until one fateful day the unexpected happened and she suddenly became a street girl without a proper home at the age of 15. That was the sad story of a young, naive, innocent teenage girl who was rejected and abandoned by her mother and wickedly sent out of her home at the middle of the night by her stepfather for a crime she was innocent of. That fateful night in the land of Eluala, a very beautiful girl named Uchechi, meaning God's will, was forced to taste the bitter and ugly side of life. Uchechi, the only child of her mother, Uchechi, was born out of wedlock. Her father denied knowing her mother. Immediately he found out that she was pregnant with Uchechi. That was her first taste of rejection even before she was born. Her mother Uchechi was a beautiful young teenage girl when she got pregnant. After Uchechi's father denied her mother's pregnancy, he disappeared and nobody knew his whereabouts until the news of his death came to Uchechi when Uchechi was still a little baby. Uchechi raised her daughter Uchechi as a single young parent who loved her so much. Growing up, Uchechi saw her mother as a very strong woman who took care of her alone. In fact, Uchechi was Uchechi's role model because of her strong willpower and motherly love she showed her. But as years passed by, things gradually began to go south for Uchechi and her daughter Uchechi. Uchechi lost her job as a sales girl in a restaurant at the local market just because she blatantly refused to give in to her boss' sexual advances on her. And as a result of losing her job and with no proper income, suddenly Uchechi and her daughter started struggling with life. Few months into the life of hardship, on one Sunday afternoon, Uchechi and her daughter Uchechi met a wonderful young man named Nduka on the road as they were returning home from a church service. Nduka was very handsome and had a beautiful smile. He was also returning from the same church service before they met. Immediately Nduka came into their lives. In a flash everything changed from bad to good. Their lives gradually began to taste good once again and they lacked no more. Nduka looked after them and provided for them abundantly. He was a very kind and caring man, who showed Uchechi and her daughter so much love and care. He was a perfect gentleman and made Uchechi to forget all her painful past and see good reason to fall in love again. Nduka would always bring groceries when visiting Uchechi. Sometimes he would take Uchechi's daughter Uchechi out and buy her things they needed at home. He was there for both Uchechi and her little daughter, perfectly playing a fatherly role to Uchechi. Nduka's relationship with Uchechi became so strong and they became soul mates. It wasn't long when they finally got married. Afterwards, Uchechi and her daughter Uchechi moved in with Nduka and they all lived together as one lovely family. Nduka was such a lovely husband to Uchechi and a caring stepfather to Uchechi and did his best to put smile on their faces. When Uchechi was about 14 years old, Nduka started providing her with everything she needed as a teenage girl even without her asking, and that made Uchechi a very happy woman. At school, Uchechi's friends were envying her because of so much attention her stepfather was giving to her and she so much enjoyed every bit of it. Nduka, whose house was a stone throw from Uchechi's school, walked Uchechi to school every morning and brought her back from school every day. He made sure Uchechi gets to school early and returns home immediately after school without being distracted by anything. They became so close and Uchechi felt highly blessed having Nduka as a father in her life. As Uchechi turned 15, her stepfather Nduka started advising her to avoid boys as friends and always told her of the danger that comes with having male friends as a very beautiful girl. Uchechi took his advice seriously and avoided playing with boys or even keeping them as friends. She only kept female friends until she completed her secondary education. During the time Uchechi was studying and preparing to write the university entrance examination, her mother Uchechi traveled to a distant town to attend a funeral of a relative. She spent few days over there, leaving Uchechi and Nduka, her stepfather, behind at home. Everything was going well with Nduka and Uchechi while her mother was away until one night Nduka turned into something else and became totally a different person from his usual self. That very night, as Nduka was watching TV in the sitting room all alone, he invited Uchechi to join him, which she gladly accepted. But unknown to her, Nduka had an evil agenda that night. He became extremely too good to Uchechi, looking at her in such a manner that Uchechi could not easily explain. He repeatedly asked Uchechi if she knew how beautiful she was, and each time he asked the young and naive Uchechi would answer, "Daddy, you have asked same questions severally this night," and she would smile. Nduka began to say certain things that to Uchechi a father shouldn't say, and she became uneasy, but before she could know it, Nduka ended up having a canal knowledge of his 15-year-old stepdaughter Uchechi. It was an unimaginable experience for the young Uchechi. As a child, she never really understood the impact of what just happened to her. And Nduka seriously warned her not to say a word of what happened to anybody, or she would face the consequences. Uchechi was scared and confused and found it very difficult to understand how her own stepfather, who had been taking good care of her and was always protecting her from boys, would destroy her at the same time, and she began to cry. As she was crying, Nduka tried to comfort her and promised to take very good care of her. The next day, as Uchechi was sitting with her friend, she noticed that Uchechi was not herself. In fact, Uchechi suddenly changed from being a smart and vibrant girl they all used to know to a quiet, moody person. Her friend was worried about how cold and distant Uchechi had suddenly become, and she tried by all means to find out what the problem was. But when her friend asked her what the issue was, Uchechi put up a smiling face and told her that everything was okay, just that she missed her mother who traveled. Few days later, Uchechi's mother Nkechi came back and noticed that something was seriously wrong with Uchechi, as she suddenly became a shadow of herself. Nkechi asked her what the problem was, but Uchechi refused to tell her what happened. But she continued asking her, and Uchechi kept telling her that she was okay. But as a mother, Nkechi was very sure that something was bothering her daughter, but she could not tell what it was. As a caring mother, Nkechi became worried. It was at that time that Nduka, her stepfather, said to Nkechi that he suspects that Uchechi had malaria. He told Nkechi not to worry herself about that and promised to take care of it. But the guilt of the incident kept eating Uchechi up, and when she finally summoned up courage and told her mother what really happened, Nkechi flared up and never believed her daughter. She called her names and claimed that Uchechi was only trying to destroy her marriage. Few weeks later, Nkechi noticed some changes in Uchechi's body. She checked closely and found out that Uchechi was pregnant, which Uchechi was not even aware of. Then Nkechi started yelling angrily at her and demanded to know who made her pregnant at her age. She told her mother that her stepfather Nduka was responsible, but Nkechi refused to believe her, just because she wanted to protect Nduka, her husband, and their marriage. Unknown to Uchechi, Nduka had already told her mother that he once caught Uchechi with a boy named Ebuka and cautioned her not to keep boyfriends. Nduka made Nkechi believe that Ebuka was responsible for Uchechi's pregnancy. Surprisingly, her mother believed every single line Nduka told her. One night, Uchechi's mother and Nduka, her stepfather, made a decision that she should abort the baby as the pregnancy was not yet visible, otherwise Uchechi should no longer stay with them. Uchechi was too scared that she might lose her life in the process of doing what they suggested, and she refused. Then few days later, Nkechi spoke with Uchechi, persuading her to do as they suggested, but Uchechi refused to abort the baby. Then Nduka concluded that she was leaving his house that night if she wouldn't do what she was told to do. And eventually that same night Uchechi was sent out of the house in the middle of the night, because she refused to comply to their demand. Uchechi stood outside their home under the moonlight, confused and sad. She felt so afraid and she did not know where to go from there. Her heart was so broken and heavy with sadness because her own mother, who she strongly relied on, failed her. Despite Uchechi's cry for help, the mother remained blind to her suffering and chose Nduka instead, over her own daughter. Nkechi was more concerned in saving her marriage than protecting her only daughter. Instead of the support Uchechi so much needed from her mother at her age and condition, she was rather accused of sleeping around and lying against her stepfather. At that point, Uchechi had no other choice but to leave the only home she had ever known. She was only 15, very young, scared, alone and pregnant, though the pregnancy was not yet visible at that time. She felt lost but eventually began a lonely walk to an unknown destination. Uchechi walked under the moonlight to a town located very far from her community, Eluala. At a point she became hungry and tired with no place to sleep. As she was walking and thinking of how she could survive in her condition, she suddenly found an abandoned building and she went inside, rested and slept there that night all alone. When she woke up and came out the next day, Uchechi realized the magnitude of her problem. Overnight, her life changed from Uchechi, a smart girl with a very bright future who was happily growing up in a sweet, loving, and caring home, to a street girl abandoned by her own mother to suffer without a proper home. Each day she would go out trying to survive on the street. Sometimes she searched for leftovers in the waste bin, which was totally not the kind of life Uchechi ever dreamed for. At the end of each day, she would return back to the abandoned house, and it finally became her new home. She was truly a strong girl who, despite all her challenges, continued soldiering on and refused to give up in life. When her belly grew big and people could notice her pregnancy, Uchechi became a young girl nobody wanted to do anything with. She was harshly judged by many and regarded as irresponsible girl who was busy with men at her age that resulted in her pregnancy. Some women in the neighborhood whispered and stared at her and every time they saw her, but no one amongst them cared to find out what Uchechi's story was. Sometimes Uchechi would go to the local market and beg from people in order to eat. It was truly not an easy life for a pregnant young and fragile girl at her age. Some of the people who had pity on Uchechi gave her money or food items, but others judged her and spoke unkindly to her. Some called her wayward and irresponsible girl who lived a careless life that ended her on the street. That was the moment Uchechi sincerely missed her mother and the genuine love and protection she used to receive from her mother before Nduka came into the picture. But at that very moment it was of no use, as she knew that no help would come from her mother either. Because she had already chosen Nduka, her husband, over the life and well-being of her teenage pregnant daughter. One day, as Uchechi was sitting hopelessly and tired inside the market, she finally made up her mind to be strong no matter the challenges, in order to survive and most importantly sustain the life growing inside of her. She knew she had to eat well in order to give birth to a healthy baby. Afterwards she started hustling on her own by selling firewood to the market women who had restaurants and to others who roasted yam, corn, and plantain in the market. She also did other little jobs like cleaning and washing clothes for people at their homes just to get something to eat. In fact, she did different things for little money or in exchange for food, which kept her going, and she eventually stopped begging people for alms. And gradually Uchechi overcame the daily challenges of no food to eat. From there she became more determined to survive no matter what. And later she began to sell sachet water and soft drinks around the market while heavily pregnant. One day as she was in the market, one woman called Mama Chi, who often supported Uchechi and bought either water or soft drinks from her, spoke to her. She asked Uchechi about her parents and how she ended up pregnant at her age. And Uchechi told her the story of her life, and Mama Chi felt pity for her. Mama Chi later took Uchechi to her home. She lived in a beautiful house built by her son in a very decent environment. As they were sitting inside the house, Mama Chi told Uchechi that she would like to be a mother figure to her if she would allow her and help her go through the challenges of teenage pregnancy. Afterwards, Mama Chi, who was staying alone, asked Uchechi if she would like to move in and live with her. Without a second thought, Uchechi gladly said yes and accepted the offer, and that was how she moved to a decent home. After many scary nights, she slept alone in the abandoned building. While living with Mama Chi, Uchechi was doing some house chores that her condition allowed, like washing and cooking. She also helped Mama Chi sometimes in the market where she sold fruits. In fact, Mama Chi was a very good and caring woman who did her best to put a smile on Uchechi's face regardless of her pains. Then few months later, during Christmas holiday, a car drove into the compound and Uchechi noticed Mama Chi welcoming one handsome young man. She heard her say, "Welcome my son Chinidu. How was your journey?" And the young man responded, "I had a safe trip, Mama." That was when Uchechi realized that the young man in question was Chinidu, Mama Chi's only child. He was a very handsome and a successful businessman based in the city. When Chinidu met Uchechi for the first time, she was busy washing Mama Chi's clothes. Uchechi could clearly sense how touched Chinidu was as he went very close to Uchechi and asked, "How are you, young girl? Are you all right?" Uchechi responded, "I am okay, brother Chinidu." Later on, Chinidu went inside the house where Uchechi was sitting in the living room and sat next to her. He held Uchechi closely and asked what her name was and how she met his mother, Mama Chi. Uchechi told Chinidu her name, and as she was about to tell him her story, she started crying. Then Chinidu tried to console her. He was such a nice and caring gentleman who was deeply touched by Uchechi's tears. After that, Chinedu later came back to Uchechi, who was still sad. He sat down and was closely holding her once again, and he asked her why she was crying. It was only then that Uchechi poured out her heart and told him the story of her life. Chinedu calmly listened and was touched by what Uchechi had passed through in life at her age. Then he told her to cry no more and promised to do his best possible to make her comfortable in her condition. The next day, Chinedu and Mama Chi had a lengthy discussion. Chinedu told her mother how he felt about Uchechi and his plans for her. After their discussion, Chinedu met with Uchechi again and told her to forget all her pains. He told her to focus on her well-being and that of her unborn child. Chinedu promised that he would take good care of her until she delivered her baby. Uchechi felt so good hearing him say all those kind and assuring words to her. In his own words he said, "Uchechi, from today, you are part of this family. Mama sees you as the daughter she never had and she cares about you a lot." Chinedu also promised Uchechi that she would no longer carry her burdens alone. It was the first time Uchechi truly had hope in several months, and she thanked him and held onto his words with all her strength. Then Uchechi and Mama Chi went to the kitchen and prepared a delicious meal. They all later sat in the dining room and happily ate together. The next day, Chinedu went out and came back with a gift he bought for Uchechi. She was very grateful and so happy for the gift. Chinedu continued showing kindness and generosity towards her. He even helped Uchechi study in preparation of the university entrance exam that he wants her to write. He promised to take Uchechi back to school after she must have delivered her baby. After the Christmas holiday, Chinedu returned back to the city and promised to be around when Uchechi's delivery date draws near. Uchechi had only known Chinedu for a very short period of time, but it felt as if they had been together for a long time. It was such a nice feeling for a young girl who had suffered so much already at her age. While in the city, Chinedu continued sending money and taking good care of Uchechi, which made life very easy for her. Mama Chi and Uchechi lived peacefully and enjoyed each other's company as mother and daughter should. Mama Chi and Chinedu registered Uchechi for antenatal at a nearby clinic, and in their own different ways they made Uchechi to feel loved and important, and she felt better in her situation and became a very happy girl once again. In the kitchen, Mama Chi taught Uchechi how to prepare different delicacies, and Uchechi enjoyed cooking with her and she learnt new recipes for different homemade dishes. Most times, Mama Chi would tell Uchechi funny stories that made her laugh so loud and forget her sorrows. Uchechi felt blessed to be part of such a real and loving family. In fact, it seemed like Mama Chi and Chinedu were divinely sent to Uchechi's life to take away her pains and restore her life back to what it used to be. Few months later, as Uchechi's delivery day was fast approaching, Chinedu kept his promise and visited home again. This time he promised to stay around until Uchechi gives birth to her baby. And Uchechi was very happy and excited to see Chinedu again. One night, as Uchechi sat in the living room, she felt serious cramps and severe pains all over her waist. Unknown to her, she was in labor. Mama Chi and Chinedu quickly assisted her and they rushed her to the clinic. Uchechi was very scared and did not know what to expect. But with the help of Mama Chi and Chinedu, who were by her side encouraging her and telling her that everything would be fine, Uchechi was able to go through the severe long pains of childbearing. And finally Uchechi later delivered a baby boy. When she finally held the baby in her arms, the baby was so small and cute. That was the moment Uchechi knew that she had to be strong for her son. Uchechi later named the baby Ifeanyi Chikwu, meaning nothing is impossible with God. As Ifeanyi began to grow, he was so cute and handsome and above all a very healthy child, and that made Uchechi to forget every pain of the past. Ifeanyi was so sweet and fulfilling to be with, and he became a bundle of joy to Uchechi, Chinedu, and Mama Chi. One day Uchechi heard the news that Nduka, her stepfather and Ifeanyi's biological father, had a strange illness that could not be cured medically no matter all their efforts. When Mama Chi heard of it, she suggested that they should inquire from a healer nearby, who might be able to help Nduka. On hearing Mama Chi's suggestion, Uchechi was not happy that Mama Chi would want them to help the same man who caused her so much pains. But finally Uchechi reluctantly agreed, unsure of what to expect. She told Mama Chi to help Nduka as she suggested, or in any other was possible if she could. Uchechi later consulted the healer, and it was revealed that Nduka and Uchechi's mother should ask for Uchechi's forgiveness. The healer stated very clearly that if Uchechi forgives Nduka and her mother Nkechi and let go of the pains they caused her, that Nduka would get better and be well again. She added that there was no other way to get him healed except a sincere, heartfelt forgiveness from Uchechi. According to her, the universe stood against Nduka and afflicted him for the evil she did against an innocent young girl Uchechi, and heartlessly sending her out of his house at the middle of the night with a pregnancy he was responsible for. Few days later, after the healer's message was sent across to Nduka and Nkechi, they hurriedly visited to ask for forgiveness. Uchechi, who could not stand their presence, went inside and refused to come out. Uchechi later went to her, talked and gave her reasons to forgive them. After Uchechi spoke to her, Uchechi agreed to meet with them. As she was with them, they tried to beg her, but she looked away from them and could not face them. Later she managed to sit with them, and her mother confessed that she knew Uchechi did not lie about what happened to her. But she was afraid that she might lose her marriage and go back to her past life of hardship. Nduka also admitted to hurting her so much. He accepted that he had been very mean to Uchechi for all he did to her, and they both pleaded for forgiveness. Uchechi was angry, but she knew forgiving them was the right thing to do. It was very hard for her, but she decided to let go of her pains and forgave them. Nduka was very grateful, and Nkechi, her mother, was relieved, but she knew deep down that Uchechi's relationship with her would never be the same again. Forgiving them brought peace to her heart, and she finally introduced Ifeanyi to her mother Nkechi, and she was very happy to meet Ifeanyi. Nduka later became okay and was completely healed of his illness. Occasionally, Uchechi would visit her mother, taking Ifeanyi along with her, as Chinedu and Uchechi advised her to do. It was a difficult decision to make, but on the other hand, notwithstanding the circumstance that led to Ifeanyi's conception and birth, Nduka remained Ifeanyi's biological father. One day, Chinedu was with Uchechi, and he affectionately told her how beautiful she was. Chinedu told Uchechi that he loved her and would like to be the man in her life. She initially did not believe that he was serious about it. Uchechi had always felt that, with Ifeanyi in the picture and the ugly story of her life, that she had no chance of falling in love, talk more of having a handsome and successful Chinedu as hers. It was like a dream to her, and when Chinedu noticed her fears, Chinedu assured her that he wants to come into her life and love her for who she was and sincerely take care of Ifeanyi as his own son. Uchechi was so happy to hear Chinedu speak, and it was a dream come true for her. When she later told Uchechi about what Chinedu said to her, Uchechi confirmed that Chinedu actually came home the first time Uchechi saw him to search for a wife. Uchechi said that immediately Chinedu set his eyes on her, that he took a decision that he would marry her no matter how ugly her story was. Uchechi was very happy, as she had already taken Uchechi as a daughter even before Chinedu met her. After hearing from Uchechi, Uchechi felt that having Chinedu in her life as her boyfriend and Uchechi as a mother were the best things ever to happen to her. She knew that it was a divine way that God had planned for her to get her life back on track, and she grabbed it with both hands and vowed not to mess it up. Uchechi continued being a good girl, taking care of Ifeanyi, helping Uchechi the best way she could, and loving Chinedu with all her might. Chinedu, on the other hand, was grateful to God and Uchechi for bringing Uchechi, such a beautiful, well-behaved, hard-working, strong girl, to his life. Chinedu later took Uchechi to the city to better her life, and they left Ifeanyi with Uchechi. Then Uchechi had the opportunity to write the entrance examination, which she did, and she later got admission to study in a higher institution, and she finally went back to school, all thanks to Chinedu. She eventually graduated from high institution with good grades, and from there the quality of her life improved greatly. Gradually Uchechi finally got her life back on track. Chinedu always took Uchechi out and genuinely showed her how much he loved and cared for her. He made Uchechi to feel and understand the true meaning of love, as she knew absolutely nothing about love before she met him. He was so proud of Uchechi's transformation, physically, mentally, educationally, and in all aspects of her life, and he displayed his affection for her everywhere they went, which made Uchechi feel so special and happy. Chinedu, who was a very good man who loved Uchechi with all his heart, and he made sure Uchechi remained happy, and Uchechi truly enjoyed all the attention she got from him. In fact, Chinedu stole Uchechi's heart completely, and she realized that all men were not the same, and she deeply fell in love with him and totally forgot her ugly past experience. Once Uchechi was done with her studies and got her life back on track and Chinedu by her side, they brought Ifeanyi, her son, to the city to live with them. They were so cute as a family together, and nobody knew that Ifeanyi was not Chinedu's child. Chinedu and Uchechi later got married and had a white wedding. They were so happy in love as they danced at their beautiful wedding ceremony. Chinedu took Uchechi overseas for their honeymoon, and life became so sweet for a poor rejected, abandoned and mocked pregnant girl Uchechi at last. They visited different beautiful places while on their honeymoon. And Chinedu made sure Uchechi experienced the best life could offer them. And it was obvious on their faces how happy they were as a couple, and they truly had a very good and a memorable time together during their honeymoon. Uchechi later got pregnant with their daughter. Ifeanyi was happy and always played with her pregnant mother. As a matter of fact, from Ifeanyi's actions around her heavily pregnant mother, he could not wait to have a little brother or sister. Chinedu continued spoiling Uchechi a lot with any given opportunity, and most times he brought home expensive gifts for her. They often walked around in the neighborhood together as a happy family. And they enjoyed peace in their marriage. When Uchechi was almost due to give birth to their daughter, Mama Chi visited them, and they were so happy to have her around. Mama Chi was so happy to see both of them deeply in love, and she thanked God for the day she decided to take Uchechi to her home. As Uchechi, Chinedu, and Ifeanyi were walking one day, pregnant Uchechi wearing a very sexy outfit reflected over the journey of her life, the challenges she overcame and the peace and happiness she finally enjoyed. She then concluded that everything about her life was truly the will of God, as her name Uchechi implies. Chinedu and Uchechi enjoyed a peaceful marriage, and they were further blessed with other children. As years passed by, Uchechi's mother Nkechi and Nduka, her stepfather, grew old. They were happy when Uchechi visited them one day after a very long time with her third child. They were happy to see Uchechi and how she had finally transformed to a beautiful, successful woman with great ambition in life. Uchechi's story was one of pain but also of love and hope. Her life started with great motherly love, and suddenly pain and hardship took over her life. But Uchechi finally found Chinedu in the midst of her miserable life when she had no hope or any expectation of finding love in her life. Chinedu and Uchechi together built a happy, peaceful and strong family full of love. They eventually grew old together, loving each other and raising their children well. And that's what matters most. This story teaches that true love has no boundaries, and that no matter how dark and difficult life may become, with determination and resilience, one can overcome adversity and find happiness. It also creates the awareness that most child abuse cases are often committed by people very close and trusted by their victims. And finally, we should learn to give listening ears to our children when they confide in us, no matter what the narrative is. Thank you for watching. Please kindly subscribe, like, and share. Remain blessed.